Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Whip for the official opposition.
Close.
House Leader, sorry.
That's okay. Well, what a week, Madam Speaker. A week that has seen a further decline in Canadian democracy. Yesterday, with the support from their NDP partners, the Liberals introduced Motion 11, which gives the NDP Liberal coalition complete control over Parliament until June 23rd. With the NDP's help, the Prime Minister now has exactly what he's always been looking for, an audience, not an opposition. That's right. Do these Liberals not understand that these type of tactics contribute to declining public confidence in our institutions and contribute to a further decline in our democracy, or do they simply not care?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Government, House Leader.
Well, Madam Speaker, despite what the member wants Canadians to believe, the reality is quite simple. What Motion 11 does is it enables members of Parliament to have debates beyond 6:30. That means instead of adjourning at 6:30, we get to sit to midnight. There are millions of Canadians that work night shifts, Madam Speaker. I'm sure members of the Conservative Party should be able to show up and put a little bit of effort and work in after 6 o'clock.
The official opposition House Leader.
Well, this is what Motion 11 does, Madam Speaker. The NDP Liberal coalition is scrapping the constitutional requirement of quorum in the House of Commons. That means that the NDP and Liberal members don't even have to show up to work. They can sit at home in their PJs and their fuzzy slippers watching reruns of This Is Us or socialist documentaries. It also gives the power to the Prime Minister to shut down Parliament at any point one of his many scandals gets too hot, say like the RCMP investigation. So I ask again, do the Liberal NDPs not understand that they're contributing to the decline of democracy in Canada, or do they simply not care?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, the waiving of quorum happens on many different occasions, whether it's emergency debates, take note debates, and the member opposite knows that. The reality is that this Motion 11 enables members of Parliament to have additional debate time. Madam Speaker, that is a good thing. That's what the Conservatives were asking for at one time. Whether they want to work or not, Madam Speaker, I can assure you that Liberals and New Democrats are committed to being able to have those additional hours so that members can have additional debate time.
You know, there's talking over while the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary was having the floor. It's hard for people at home to hear what's going on, and I'm sure people who are individuals who are in the seats here watching. So, Order. I can't even hear myself talk at this point. So I just think that, you know, individuals, parliamentarians should be setting an example for people who are at home watching. L'honorable député de Louis-Saint-Laurent.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, we have never seen such an arrogant government. We should recall that this party was elected with fewer votes than the official opposition, but then they bought a majority by making a dishonorable alliance with the remaining crumbs of the NDP. And now yesterday, this government tabled a motion to give itself excessive powers to control Parliament. What are they hiding with all this arrogance?
To the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I don't understand why it is the Conservatives are afraid of extra debate time. Do they not realize that Canadians from coast to coast to coast often work beyond 6:30 p.m.? What this legislation does, what Motion 11 does in reality, is it allows for additional debate time. That is something that's not new, Madam Speaker. Provincial and national governments have used that for many, many years. We are doing the same thing, allowing for additional debate. It's as simple as that, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Louis-Saint-Laurent. Well, that's all very well, Madam Speaker, but the problem is that this honourable parliamentary secretary is forgetting a very small detail. There won't be quorum in the House with this motion, so we, the Conservatives, will be doing our job, but the Liberals will be relaxing at home, having fun with their friends or watching movies. They won't be here doing their work. Once again, why adopt this arrogant motion? which means that parliamentary democracy is disappearing in this country.
Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, that might be what the Conservative members might be doing, watching Netflix and so forth. I can assure Canadians that we take, whether it's the virtual Parliament or sitting in the House, very seriously. We are engaged. We want to encourage additional debate. That's why we bring forward a motion that will allow members of Parliament to work till midnight in the closing of a session, because there's a substantial legislative agenda. Let's get to work for Canadians, Madam Speaker. That's what it's all about.
Let's get to work. Ben oui, allons travailler, monsieur.
Yes, let's get to work, Madam Speaker. But again, another little detail that my colleague is forgetting is that this government is giving itself the authority to prorogue the House whenever it wants to. And that brings back some bad memories. 2 years ago, for example, in the middle of the We Charity scandal, when the Prime Minister was backed into a corner by everything we were hearing, well, he decided to prorogue the House. Why once again adopt a motion that means that committee work may be affected by this arrogant Liberal motion?
Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, talk about gross exaggeration. There is a clause that's in there that says, Madam Speaker, that we will come back in September, that we could potentially bring in at the end of June. But what the member doesn't tell you is that it's a voted upon motion. We are a minority government. The only way in which a motion of that nature can pass is if a majority of the members in the House support it, Madam Speaker. Unlike the Conservatives, we believe in working in cooperation even with members of the opposition party, which includes the member that just put the question.
It's evident that we all love question period and that it's Friday. I would just ask members to, hold back on their thoughts while someone else has the floor. Questions et commentaires. L'honorable.
Questions? The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Well, this House stipulated that a committee should study the firing of the Winnipeg scientists. But instead of providing the documents to the committee, the Liberals are creating an alliance with the NDP to create their own committee, which will have its own rules and doesn't care about the other parties. Ever since the Liberals and NDP signed their pact, the NDP isn't a real opposition party. It's contractually linked to the government, so there's no real opposition party that has been consulted. Where is democracy in all this, Madam Speaker?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, what is clear is we have established a mechanism that is not truly unique, because the former Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, used the same mechanism that ensured that there's a sense of national security, which should be a concern of all members of this House. Now, the Government House Leader has indicated, both to the Conservatives and to the Bloc, that we would like to see them participate in this mechanism that ensures that there's a high sense of accountability and that the national interests are served. The same mechanism that Stephen Harper used, Madam Speaker.
L'honorable député de Rivière-du-Nord.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Madam Speaker, if committees have been created, if committees were created out of parties that agreed on every detail, then what would be the point? It's only when you disagree originally that you can come to an agreement on policy in a meaningful way. So with their contract, these two parties have essentially merged, and so they no longer have the legitimacy to decide alone on the rules of our democratic bodies. The Liberals need to sit down with the real opposition parties and put an end to this. When will we have some democracy?
Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, the only merger I see is the double blue. The Conservatives and the Bloc, Madam Speaker, on this particular issue, like other issues, at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, this mechanism that has been put into place will ensure the interests of national security, while at the same time ensure a high sense of accountability for those documents. I would hope that the Conservatives and the Bloc will recognize the true value, as Stephen Harper did, in recognizing the importance of this particular mechanism. mechanism. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Windsor West.
Madam Speaker, as we watch another convoy roll into Ottawa, the City of Windsor is still recovering from the blockades 2 months ago. We learned this week that this government will reimburse the City of Ottawa for the policing costs of the mismanaged convoy crisis. Meanwhile, Windsor has heard nothing about the $6 million the city had to spend to clear the Ambassador Bridge blockade. All week we've heard the Liberals take credit for the work done in Windsor, but it's my residents who still pay the price. We did all the right things and we took it on the chin for this country. Why are the Liberals making it so hard for the City of Windsor residents having to pay for the blockade?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And sorry, Madam Speaker. We're committed to protecting the safety and well-being of Canadians. I actually just spoke with the Minister this week about that very issue. I know he is alert to the problem, and I invite the honourable member to have a conversation. I'd be happy to chat with him as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Victoria.
Madam Speaker, Canadians are finally able to travel and to see loved ones again. But there are huge delays. The passport system is broken. Canadians are waiting hours in line at passport offices, making multiple visits only to be turned away. This week, so many constituents have reached out to my office desperate for help. The passport system is failing them. This is causing immense amounts of stress and anxiety. My question is simple. Does the minister think that these delays are acceptable, and when will they be fixed?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for her question. Madam Speaker, we know that Canadians are eager to travel again, and there's been a significant and overwhelming increase in demand for passports at all Service Canada centres across the country wanting in-person service. I've spoken to the Minister about this, and she is well aware that it's very stressful and difficult for Canadians. She's been visiting Service Canada centres throughout the country, speaking to local staff. And in addition, already in December, we hired 500 more passport officers to process applications. We're using every tool that we have in our toolbox at this time to improve service to Canadians for what they deserve.
Our member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Speaker, the average price of a home in Canada is $874,000 and quickly rising. For millennials looking to buy a home, the thought of even buying a home is like getting that pet unicorn that they dreamt of when they were a child. So, Speaker, will the government stop adopting policies that drive up inflation, find a common sense solution, and help millennials and young families hoping to buy a home?
Good question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. On est d'accord avec le membre que...
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We agree that many Canadians are finding it almost impossible to buy a house. And that's why the budget we tabled has major investments, $200 million for rent-to-buy opportunities, because we do need to give Canadians the chance to buy a property. And there is also a tax-free account that will help Canadians to do that. On this side of the House, we take this matter seriously, and we are working on various programs to help Canadians.
Middlesex.
Well, Speaker, how can the member opposite say that? This government isn't being helpful. In fact, Ipsos says that 63% of Canadians hoping to own have given up on that hope. One couple even told me that every single broker that they've spoken to has told them that the first-time homebuyers program is a scam and they shouldn't participate in it. So, Madam Speaker, instead of offering common sense solutions, this government is more concerned about prosecuting crimes on the moon. So, Speaker, will the minister admit his failure, go back to the drawing board, and come up with a real plan?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. We are determined to create clear rules of the game. We need to ensure that we work on the rights of renters and buyers. We need to make sure that the rules of the game are fair for everyone. We want everyone to be able to access a property if they want to.
The Liberal NDP government is pricing Canadians out of their own lives. Instead of coming up with solutions, they like to refer to other countries' inflation levels. Well, I have some numbers for them. France is at 4.4%, Japan is at 1.2%. But Madam Speaker, comparison doesn't help a millennial afford a home or give hope to Canadians who are one paycheck away from bankruptcy. It's Liberal spending that is leaving a debt load for future generations. So when will this government take responsibility for the position they have put Canadians in and cut their spending?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Global inflation is having a significant impact on household budgets. While Canada's rate of inflation is below that of the US, Europe, the G7, the OECD, we are continuing to focus on making life more affordable. We are indexing important programs like the Canada Child Benefit, OAS and GIS to the cost of living. We are implementing an economic growth plan that creates jobs, grows the economy, and doubles the amount of residential construction so that those millennials can afford their next home or their first home. We do this while unwinding Canada's pandemic deficits, reducing our debt to GDP ratio, because that is the fiscal responsible thing to do.
The Deputy de Beauce.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, the cost of living is continuing to affect Canadians. In a rural riding like mine, we don't have access to transit, so people have to go to work in their cars. With the increase in gas prices, Canadians are struggling. The Conservative Party presented a motion to suspend an increase in the carbon tax. But our greedy Prime Minister can only see dollar signs instead of seeing the difficulties facing ordinary workers. Why doesn't this government want to give Canadians a break so they can catch up after 2 pandemic years? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. The increase in energy prices is, of course, due to the Ukraine war. But we will be there as a federal government to help Canadians to face the increase in the cost of living, whether by supporting dental care, whether it be by programs to help people access housing, whether it be by being there to reduce the price of childcare, Madam Speaker. We are here to help Canadians. I'd like to thank my colleague for his interest in the question.
Kelowna Lake Country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before the Liberals even presented their NDP budget, they were proudly bragging about how inflated tax revenues from tax increases and inflation would let them spend even more than before. They proudly announced the billions added to the national debt. Yet for all that spending, they can't explain to my constituents why food and house prices will only continue to rise. They point the fingers away from themselves. Is the government ever going to connect the dots and see that their continued high spending means higher costs of basic necessities for hardworking Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the leader of the Conservative Party herself has already admitted that the extraordinary investments that were made over the course of the pandemic were necessary to protect Canadian families and Canadian workers. Our plan has worked. In fact, we have maintained the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7 while growing the economy and recovering 115% of jobs lost due to the COVID-19. Canada was able to do this because of our prudent fiscal management. It is now time to unwind the pandemic deficits and continue to grow our economy while reducing our debt to GDP ratio. This is what good fiscal managers do, and it's going to allow us to make Canada and life for...
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Aggressive rate hikes are coming, and that's because this government continues to spend recklessly. Here's what that means for an average Canadian. If you're lucky enough to buy a house for the $800,000 that it costs, with a 2% mortgage, you're paying about $3,400 a month for those mortgage payments. The potential of a 3% rate hike means $3,400 turns into $5,200. Why is this government drowning Canadian homeowners in the debt of tomorrow to pay for the pet projects of today?
Great question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we just recently had an election where the Conservatives actually committed to spend more than what we proposed. They pretend to be good fiscal managers, but this is impossible if you're not committed to evidence-based decision-making. Our government will lower our debt-to-GDP ratio every single year for the next 5 years. Unlike the Conservatives, we will do this while fighting climate change, investing in housing affordability, and building a Canadian economy of the future alongside our Indigenous partners while fighting climate change.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Well, Madam Speaker, this is a difficult time for local and regional newspapers. Apart from the challenges of the digital transition, they are also facing changing habits with the disappearance of Publisac, the ad flyer bags. That was where these newspapers were often distributed, but now Canada Post is charging exorbitant fees for delivery. So Canada Post should now distribute our regional newspapers at a preferential rate. I spoke to the minister about it, and he was very favorable, and he made an announcement before the media. Where is that negotiation now? This is urgent. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Bill C-18 is good news for small media. Thanks to collective bargaining, small media will be able to make agreements. And we wrote into the law that tech giants will have to make those agreements with a diversity of media, not just the big ones. Local media are essential to so many communities, and we will support them through Budget 2022, which I hope the Bloc will support. $50 million was added in the last budget to support small media. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, I appreciate the answer that the Parliamentary Secretary just gave me, but it's a good answer to a question I didn't ask. There's no relation between the two. Madam Speaker, for 20 years, local and regional journalism has been eroding before our very eyes. This is not a recent thing. I'm not talking about the digital transition. I'm talking about the distribution of local weeklies. With the gradual disappearance of the Publisac, every dollar that a weekly spends on Canada Post chargers is a dollar they're not spending on the newsrooms. All the delivery fees, all of their efforts to distribute their newspapers, all of that is effort that's not going to be invested in essential journalism. This is very concerning, Madam Speaker. When will the minister announce an agreement for preferential charges with Canada Post so that Canada Post can distribute our weeklies?
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. We entirely agree that we need to support local media. And we are doing that through a specific fund. In addition, with regard to Canada Post, Canada Post is a Crown corporation that does not have a direct link with the government. Canada Post will make decisions on delivery as well as on rates. But we will work closely with Canada Post and do what we can to support local media.
Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
Misuse of taxpayers' money, sexual harassment, special treatment for wealthy tax dodgers. No, this is not a Liberal cabinet meeting, but rather misdeeds at the CRA exposed by whistleblowers. Now, whistleblowers who have been publicly exposed by the very person in government who was meant to protect them. So will the President of the Treasury Board do the right thing and commit to ensuring every single one of these whistleblowers is protected from retribution by this government for exposing this scandal?
Great question.
Le secrétaire parlementaire du Premier ministre et la présidente du Conseil du Trésor.
Madam Speaker, our government believes that those who disclose serious wrongdoing should be protected. The Office of the Public Security and Integrity Commissioner of Canada is an independent agent of Canada. It is mandated to allow anyone to disclose wrongdoing in the federal public service. I've been advised that that information has been removed by the federal court, and a new certified tribunal record is being produced. Later this year, our government will be launching a review to strengthen the protection of whistleblowers. Clearly, this incident raises serious questions, which we will discuss in that review.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton West.
PBO has exposed $15 billion in unexplained defense spending in the budget. Now, in a briefing with the PBO, we were told that they asked Finance, but Finance said they didn't know and go ask D&D. They asked D&D, but D&D said, we don't know, ask Finance. They went back to Finance, and Finance said, well, we don't know the details, maybe it's just a forecast. So maybe someone on that side of the House could tell us, or perhaps Finance, or perhaps D&D, what that $15 billion is for.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Defence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are increasing our defence spending by over 70% under the defence policy Strong, Secure and Engaged. And Budget 2022 contains an additional $8 billion in new defence spending. The department plan only contains current capital spending that has been fully approved by the Treasury Board, Madam Speaker, and Parliament, whereas the budget contains forward-looking forecasts. In other words, these are two different ways of presenting our forecasted spending. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member for Langley-Aldergrove.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Contrary to the song that this Liberal government has been singing about inflation being transitory, tied to short-term supply chain disruptions, Bank of Canada Governor Macklem is now acknowledging that inflation is going to be with us longer than anticipated and 6% higher than anticipated. This inflation costs the average Canadian worker $2,000 a year, the average family $4,000 a year. How does this government think that the average hardworking middle-class family can adjust and manage that kind of a shock to the family budget?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, before the pandemic, it took only two Conservative governments to accrue more than 70% of Canada's pre-pandemic debt. That's because their fiscal ideology is to cut taxes for the wealthy and to cut services for everyone else. In stark contrast, our last Liberal government paid down our national debt significantly. We've demonstrated that you can be good fiscal managers while investing in Canadians, growing the economy, and continuing to fight poverty and climate change. Budget 2022 lowers our debt to GDP ratio and will help build a Canada where no one is left behind.
For Dauphin Swan River, Nippewa.
Madam Speaker, as inflation and interest rates continue to rise, Canadians are feeling the financial pain. But the NDP Liberal government doesn't seem to care. They have no problem with their $53 billion deficit in this year's budget. Experts are sounding the alarm, Madam Speaker. A new report by RBC Economics reveals that low-income Canadians will feel the sharpest financial sting from climbing inflation and interest rate hikes. So will this government finally admit that their reckless spending is hurting Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, Budget 2022 is entitled A Plan to Grow Our Economy and Make Life More Affordable. This budget lowers our debt to GDP ratio and seeks solutions for the labour shortage because our jobs-based recovery strategy has successfully lowered Canada's unemployment rate to all-time historic lows. The budget addresses some of Canada's greatest challenges, including childcare, affordability, climate change, economic growth, and Indigenous reconciliation. It is a plan that invests in people and that will help build an economy where no one gets left behind.
Member for Churchill, Kiwanis-Nookasky.
Madam Speaker, Kamloops 215, Brandon 104, Cowessess 751, Cross Lake 54. This is just a few of the children discovered in mass graves in residential schools across the country in the last year. So many children still families, oftentimes by the RCMP. And now this government wants the very same RCMP to assist in investigations, having given them millions in the budget. Why didn't the government just give the money directly to communities who are looking to bring their children home?
The Honourable Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations.
Yeah, thanks for the member for her very important question. Clearly, what we've heard from communities who pursuant to the calls to action 72 through 76 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, have to have the leadership. It isn't the place of the Government of Canada to step into communities and provide all the answers, but certainly we have to stand by and provide the financing and support of those communities that are still reeling, search for answers and search for their lost loved ones. The financing for the RCMP is to complete that element of accountability. It's work in ensuring that that institution is accountable to those survivors, and that work will continue. Thank you.
Remember Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Madam Speaker, drive 100 kilometers in an electric vehicle and it'll cost you about $2. That kind of mileage would go a long ways in helping families who are struggling today with high gas prices. Now, the upfront cost of new electric vehicles puts them out of reach for many lower income families. The Liberals, in their election platform, promised an incentive for used zero emission vehicles. BC and Quebec already have programs in place, and yet in this recent federal budget, we saw nothing. Can the minister please explain why?
The Honourable Minister
of the Environment and Climate Change.
Colleague for his question. In fact, we have expanded in the last budget the purchase incentive for electric vehicles. We have doubled the amount of charging stations we will be installing across Canada to 50,000, Madam Speaker, and we're investing with companies to transform Canada auto sector from gasoline to electric vehicles. We will be coming up with more measures to help people adopt electric vehicles in the future. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As we approach the warmer spring and summer weather, small businesses and constituents in my riding of Hamilton East, Stony Creek are looking forward to increased tourism opportunities. Can the Minister for Economic Development for Southern Ontario inform the House of what our government is doing to support local tourism across the region?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And I want to thank the member from Hamilton East, Stony Creek, for their ongoing advocacy for small businesses and tourism in their riding. Our government has made targeted investments to support the tourism industry and the local communities that rely on tourism. Just recently, the minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario announced $68.5 million in funding to be delivered by Indigenous Tourism Ontario and 11 regional tourism organizations to support up to 40 Indigenous projects and up to 1,300 tourism entities. Speaker, that will create or maintain up to 4,100 jobs across Southern Ontario. Our government will continue to be there for small business and tourism agencies.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Madam Speaker, if the NDP Liberals won't follow the province's lead and give unvaccinated Canadians their rights back, maybe they will follow our international partners. We know that the Prime Minister values his Playboy image on the world stage more than anything else, as his travels and selfies prove, but our international partners are bewildered as to why the Canadian government is so reluctant to let life return to normal for all Canadians. Switzerland and Greece are removing all travel-related restrictions next week, and virtually no other country requires it for domestic travel for their citizens. So why won't this government follow the science?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Sport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for giving me the opportunity to highlight a recent study indicating that, unfortunately, the unvaccinated continue to disproportionately risk the safety of those vaccinated against COVID-19, and highlight the fact that in the last week, almost 12,000 Canadians have received their first dose, 30,000 Canadians have received their second, 89,000 have received their third, and over 220,000 have received their fourth dose, Madam Speaker. This pandemic is not over. We all want it to be, but we must continue to follow the science. We must continue to support our neighbours. We must continue to fight for kids to ensure that young people under 6 do not get COVID-19, as they have been the biggest numbers in the last couple of days. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, Madam Speaker, the Parliamentary Secretary talks about supporting our neighbours. Under this government, we still have neighbours, members of our community who aren't able to travel, who aren't able to provide for themselves and their families because of unscientific mandates that this government continues to perpetuate. It's the end of April, and this Prime Minister still refuses to follow the science. International allies, most of the provinces, they've done the right thing, but this government continues to lag behind. Enough is enough. So will the Prime Minister finally take the politics out of it, follow the science, and end the mandates?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. On this side of the House, we are very concerned by the safety of Canadians. On this side of the House, we are using the advice of Canadian experts. Canadian policy has not changed, and we are going to base our decisions on the public health advice in Canada.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Provinces have now ended mandates for vaccination requirements for public spaces, and businesses are following suit. People need to work to support their families. When will the federal government catch up with the rest of the country and the world and end vaccine requirements for their workers?
Our Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And like my honourable colleague, I want this pandemic to be over too. But unfortunately, nationally, last week, 383 new deaths were recorded. That's unfortunate. And over the last 30 days, the number of kids under 5 who have gotten their is the third highest hospitalization rate of any age group. The highest rates were among those 68 and older. However, rates in the under 5 age group are more than 5-fold higher than those in above 5 and above 4. So we must continue to support our neighbors. We must continue to encourage vaccination. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In my home province of Manitoba, provincial public servants can actually come to work without having to be vaccinated. In Ottawa, if a public servant isn't vaccinated, they get the pink slip. Why should federal public servants be held to a different standard than provincial ones? It's time to be reasonable. Will the minister show just a little compassion, act like a reasonable person, and finally lift mandates on federal public servants?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, having a fully vaccinated workforce makes our work sites and communities safer. And when we asked the employees of the federal public service to stand up and to do their part, 99% said yes. And Madam Speaker, we are committed to review this policy every 6 months. Right now, we are in the middle of a review. We will make our decision based on science and on facts, and I look forward to keeping this House updated on that fact.
The Honourable Member for Shepford. Madam Speaker, there is a fraud epidemic at Service Canada, and the federal government is completely abandoning its victims. In my riding alone, 175 people have contacted me because Ottawa is depriving them of their benefits because they were victims of fraud. Madam Speaker, it is the fraudsters who must be punished, not the victims of fraud. As we speak, thousands of people across Quebec have lost their jobs and are being deprived of employment insurance. When will the government pay the victims of fraud their money instead of penalizing them?
Mr. Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question.
Recognize the concern and the hardship of identity theft and attempted EI fraud that has happened to many Canadian families, particularly in Quebec. The department has seen an increase in the attempt and fraudulent activity, and we know it has impacted the benefits and payments of many individuals. In response to the situation, the minister has expressed her concern to officials, and they've asked officials to explore every effort possible to assist Canadians in combating fraudulent activity in their accounts to make sure that their benefits are secured and received in a timely manner. This includes adding approximately 150 investigators who are dedicated to resolving these issues in Quebec.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Madam Speaker. In my riding, roughly 70 people also have contacted me because they've paid into EI all their lives, but they're not receiving a cent. Why? Because they're victims of fraud. We're talking about thousands of people in this situation in Quebec, and the cost of living is skyrocketing, but Service Canada is depriving honest people of income. Since November, we must investigate and not hold victims hostage. When will the government pay the workers the benefit that they have paid into their entire lives? It's a question of equity and mental health, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Merci, Madam Speaker. As I mentioned previously, we are doing everything we can to make sure that the EI services and supports that Canadians have paid into are received to them in a timely manner. We recognize the concern and the hardship that they are experiencing through fraud, and we're working diligently with officials to make sure that they receive their benefits in an integrated action plan. We've increased our EI call center and Service Canada Centre officers to be trained to address these and to be a first point of contact to those who are experiencing these hardships. We will continue to work diligently with our officials to make sure that they receive the benefits they deserve. Thank you.
Calgary Forest Lawn.
As of February, IRCC's backlog of caregiver roles above 16,000. My office hears from people every day desperate to have their caregiver's case finally get processed. While caregiver cases remain stuck, families are forced to stay at home, not able to work or contribute to the economy. This is causing mental health issues for both Canadians needing caregivers and those that want to come to Canada under the caregiver program. It's time to stop stranding people in this Liberal-made backlog. When will the minister clear this Liberal-made backlog in the caregiver program?
Minister for Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship.
Madam Speaker, if the last few years have taught us anything, it's the importance of those who provide care to members of our community to allow them to stay in their own homes and to receive the care they need in their communities. Last year, we've made final decisions on approximately 6,000 cases with nearly 2,800 caregivers who've arrived, more than 4,000 if you include their families. Across 6 programs, we expect to see another 6,000 or so landed in Canada this year. We'll continue to work to bring caregivers to Canada to make sure they can provide support to families that live in our communities.
Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Backlogs are a common theme under this Liberal government, whether it's for veterans, seniors, immigration, and now passports. Despite knowing that Canadians want to travel and need to get their passports renewed, this government has failed to prepare. Now, people are having to wait in long lineups at 4 a.m. and have no way of knowing when they will finally get their passport. When will the minister do her job and clear up the passport backlog? They knew it was coming.
Yeah. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It seems that I'm answering a lot of questions today. Just to answer my colleague on his questions,
let's allow the Honourable Member to Parliamentary Secretary to respond so that the Honourable Member can have the answer to his question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, there's an overwhelming increase in demand for passport services at this time, nearly 40%. And the minister has been working with officials. As I mentioned before, we've already hired, as of December, 500 new passport employees, but we've done more than that, Madam Speaker. We created 3 additional passport application processing centers. We've extended service into weekends and overtime. Our Service Canada officials are working day and night to make sure that Canadians get the passports and services they need. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, the seeding season has arrived and a large number of temporary foreign workers are expected. Unfortunately, many companies are waiting for workers who are not arriving. Yet, procedures began at the end of 2021 for the arrival of these workers. It is the Minister of Immigration not able to show any foresight, especially since this program has existed for several years. Once again, this government is in reaction mode, and our farmers will pay the price. What does this minister say to many farmers who are having to delay seeding or even reduce their acreage this summer?
Minister of Health and Minister of Sports.
Madam Speaker, thank you, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. We appreciate the contribution to the Canadian economy of these farmers, and that is why there is a 3-year period of investment. $29.3 million will be introduced in investment. $64.6 million will be put towards employer inspections so that there is decent and fair treatment. We will always be there for employers. The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Madam Speaker, COVID has had a tremendous impact on our economy, and it's thanks of this government's prudent and constant support to Canadians and Canadian businesses that we are seeing a strong economic recovery. But we know that there are other opportunities for economic growth in this great country. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Tourism and the Associate Minister of Finance please stand up and tell us how the 2022 budget will promote economic growth? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. I'd like to thank the member for her excellent question, and obviously Budget 2022 does have many measures to promote economic growth with a new growth fund for Canada to boost investment in the private sector, but we're continuing to invest in our clusters. And yesterday, the Prime Minister announced in Montreal that a Moderna factory would be setting up shop here in Quebec.
Madam Speaker, Laura, a nurse in my riding, has worked long hours to guarantee the health and well-being of our community during the pandemic.
It's wonderful.
She was upset to learn renewing her passport would take several months.
Oh, no.
Her credit card was charged, but her passport was nowhere to be found.
Unacceptable.
Our healthcare providers have given up a lot to keep our communities safe.
Absolutely.
When is this government going to recognize the hard-working Canadians and get them back to work?
Absolutely.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as we know, Canadians have waited a long time to travel again, and many of them are eager to do so, to reunite with loved ones and to take a well-needed rest and vacation. But as I mentioned before, demand for passports is up over 40%, and our Service Canada employers are working night and day, overtime and weekends. As I said before, we will continue to uncover every opportunity to ensure Canadians receive the service that they deserve. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on April the 8th, I asked the Minister of Public Safety about proposed prison dairy farm operations at Joyceville and Collins Bay. The Minister told this House that a contract had been signed. Now, I think that he was talking about a contract unrelated to the concerns I raised, but I can't know for sure because he neglected to provide any details about that contract. So, what exactly is the contract for? With whom was the contract signed? Is it related to goat milk production for export? And will the Minister table the contract in the House? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as I have told the Honourable member personally, while Correctional Services was considering goat milk farming, what's the right term? It is no longer under consideration. Correctional Services Canada does not intend to do any goat milk farming. Goat milk. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Madam Speaker, my office continues to hear from small businesses, including farmers, about the reduced hours at land border crossings and the negative impacts on local economies. With seeding underway and crop export shipments imminent, many transport operators are driving hundreds of extra kilometers just to get to a 24-hour port. With skyrocketing gas prices on top of the carbon tax, they can't afford the unnecessary detours. When will the Minister stop making the life harder for these small businesses and return border crossing hours back to normal?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, I was listening to a lot of noise in the background, and I will be very honest with you, I did not hear the question, so if the member would like to speak to me afterwards, I'll be happy to answer it, and I do apologize.
The Honourable Member for Dorval-Lachine. Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle.
Madam Speaker, period poverty is a real issue affecting Canadians all over the country. People who menstruate should have access to menstrual products when they need them. Can the Parliamentary Secretary of Women and Gender Equality and Youth share what our government is doing to support menstrual equity? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank the Honourable Member for her question. Madam Speaker, menstrual products are a basic need and are essential to uphold Canadian sexual and reproductive health and rights. They ensure that people who menstruate can continue to participate in school and work and in their communities. However, period stigma still exists and create barriers for Canadians every day. That's why, as part of Budget 2022, our government has allocated $25 million starting this year and continuing into next to pilot a menstrual equity fund to make menstrual products available to people who need them. I look forward to working with the stakeholders and ensuring—
Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Last week, a federal court judge called into question this government's approach to removing open net fish farms in Discovery Islands. Liberal mismanagement has put BC's vulnerable wild salmon at risk. It also casts serious doubts on the government's ability to meet their commitment to remove open net fish farms by 2025. When will this government deliver a real transition that supports First Nations, workers, and finally removes fish farms from our waters?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The sustainable management of our ocean ecosystem, including the wild Pacific salmon, is a priority for our government. The decision to phase out fish farms in the Discovery Island was based on consultation with local First Nations, and we're aware of the court decision, and the department is carefully reviewing it, Madam Speaker, ahead of determining next steps. We remain committed to transitioning away from open net pen salmon farming in coastal BC waters. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of question period.